Hi, welcome back to the channel. This is an R53 generation Mini Cooper S. So it's the first of the, new generation of Minis. It's the first of the current generation of Minis, the BMW owned Minis. And I say it's the S version, so it's the the Supercharged version, which is sort of starting to become a bit almost iconic in its own way. So the reasoning behind this car, it's our own car, the reasoning behind the car is I have had a bit of a wondering. There's so much variety and so many interesting cars around for the reasonably affordable sub £5,000-ish mark that I was toying with and looking at, with the view to, can you pick a car up like this, find quite a good example that's going to run it for a few months, and maybe sell it on and hopefully not lose anything, but maybe even gain something, maybe even gain some money on it, if you can get lucky and all the rest of it. But so other cars I was looking at might have been like a Mark 1 TT or even a 986 Boxster, although obviously there's people have worries about those with IMS bearings and all the rest of it, but still I can't help but wonder if they will never be cheaper than the £4,000 to £6,000, £7,000, £8,000 that they are today. Just looking through various cars that are available for that kind of money, and this nice little Cooper S came up, and I thought, have a look at it, because they're starting to become quite interesting. It's the era of the early 2000s, and I'm starting to wonder if the early 2000s cars like this that were developed through the late 90s might be kind of like this last spot whereby you had cars that were still analog in their, in the sense that you had things like hydraulic steering and manual gearboxes and natural aspirator, in this form, supercharger, that you're not going to find so much today. So in starting to get more modernised in terms of electronics and things like that. So this car's kind of getting a bit of a reputation as being the lively one of the Mini bunch, and being quite raw and typically go-kart like in its handling and whatever else, and they're becoming so affordable. You think, will really nice examples get that much cheaper? I'm not sure they will. So this car's only done about 60,000 miles, and it's in really nice condition. The bodywork's lovely, underneath's lovely and clean. Obviously no sign of any rust or anything like that for what is a 15-year-old car now. So this is an 05 car. It's actually a 54 reg, but it is an 05, and I wanted basically a simple checklist. I wanted as low mileage as I could find. I wanted to get an 05 onwards because I wanted it to have a limited slip differential if possible, and just a manual and as nice condition as possible. The facelifted cars have apparently got 170 horsepower and a Teflon coated supercharger for what it's worth. I just think it's a nice set of ingredients when you think of like a modern take on an old school hot hatch. And so basically I just wanted to give an initial impressions rather than a full-blown review, because we've not had the car that long to give an in-depth thing. But the impressions I'm getting is, the first thing is, it feels so solid. It feels really, really solid. There's a few things this car needed when we got it. I believe I got a pretty good price, but it did have a few little niggly issues. Firstly, among which was a really, really loud, grindy wheel bearing, which was pretty frightening at first. It sounded so grindy to drive along, but we changed that, and now it's absolutely fine. The brake discs need changing desperately. They are the original discs, so 15 years old now, and the rear ones look like they've been kept under the sea. They need changing pretty quickly, but I don't know, it kind of shows that the car hasn't had a particularly hard life to be on the original disc, but at the same time, it's a low mileage car, so you'll expect it in that regard too. and I think it's probably done a reasonable amount of sitting in recent years. So just basic servicing and things like that for personal, you know, confidence really, to know that it's all up to scratch and everything. So we've been running through all those and changing all the fluids and everything, and now it's running really nice. But yeah, the initial impressions of the car is just how solid it feels. It feels, you know, you can tell a sort of BMW line. The gearbox is a Getrag in the Cooper S, and it feels really solid. Absolutely, you know, BMW-esque really. It's really slick as well, actually. It's not that sort of like, you know, I've said it before, but it's not that kind of MX-5 snick-snack or anything like that. It's really meaty, and it's a lovely box to use, actually, but it gives the impression, it gives the car a more grown-up, you know, stronger feel than the car is. You know, you sort of don't, you forget that you're in a little 1.6 hatchback that is actually, you know, by modern standards, pretty small. It's funny, when these generation of Minis came out, everyone sort of laughed at the size of them and thought, cool, a Mini, you know, more like a Maxi, it's so big. But, you know, 15 years on, it is actually a small car. You can get people in the back, you can get kids in the back, you know, very comfortably. But ultimately, it is a small car. The wheels are pressed right out of the corners, there's no overhangs, which probably helps for that sort of go-kart feeling that you get with the car. And they're about 1,200 kilos or so, which actually isn't as light as you might sort of think, really. But for modern standards, once again, pretty good. So yeah, it feels really solid. The steering is also really solid and meaty, much heavier and more sort of granite-like in its feel than you would expect. At the same time, I'm sure they've given it this sort of feel because it feels really bolted, really composed, and it disguises, you know, it rides not too badly. The only problem with the ride, I think, is these run flats. This has still got all the run flats all around, and I'm sure if you change those to regular tyres, it would completely transform the ride. But yeah, it feels really solid and really planted. The steering's kind of not too dissimilar from, you know, something like our 330 E90 generation, you know, M Sport car. It's that kind of feeling, really. So I believe it's a hydraulic rack, but an electric pump or something, which is why you get that weird whirring noise that Minis have of this era. So I might as well get straight on with talking about the main sort of feature of this car that most people know and love about this thing, and that is the supercharger. And we'll just give it a bit of noise. You can, yeah, there it is. So yeah, the fact that they're supercharger is way more fun than I expected it to be. So, you know, people have always said, oh, I love the supercharger whine, I love the whine from a supercharger, and I personally have always thought to myself, I'm not sure a whine is the sort of noise that I particularly love about a car. You know, whines are normally something you'd be worrying about, or, you know, have I got to change a belt or anything like that. But, you know, when it comes down to it, having now actually experienced the proper supercharger whine, I can see why people absolutely love it, because, you know, as it comes on and you chase that one, you put your foot down and it starts to go, you know that you associate that sound with power and performance, and you associate that with the you know, heightened power delivery in the same way you would associate, you know, induction noise on a Type R or something like that. So it's way more fun than I expected it to be, and nipping it around little back roads like this and chasing that whine is fantastic. Way more fun than I expected it to be. Might actually give it, yeah, that's it. You think, oh, I'll give it a downshift just to get it, you know, whirring away, and it's brilliant. Right, so the best way I can sort of describe what the supercharger's like is that it just kind of makes the car feel like it's got a bigger engine, because it's, you know, not waiting for boost pressure to build up like a turbo, because it's running off the engine. It's sort of, it doesn't have the lag, it's always there, the boost in performance and the boost in power, and it makes it really responsive even from low revs. You don't need to rev it out to get a bit of shove. I mean, it's not, when you look at the figures, it's not got sort of a colossal amount of torque or anything like that. Certainly by, you know, modern car standards, the way they're going with these new turbos, but it still has that real sort of pull all the way through. You can put it in 6th gear and it's fine, sort of thing, even at slow speeds. So it makes the car just feel like it's got a bigger engine and just more performance, but then you get that lovely whirring sound that is actually quite addictive. The whole car is really good fun. This car's running on the Sports Plus. I don't know if that is actually, you know, particularly different set of springs and dampers or anything like that, but it certainly sits pretty low on the ground and feels pretty sporty in the way it's riding. It's pretty firm and it turns in really nicely. It's got plenty of grip. Heel and toes are pretty good. You know, as ever, I would always prefer a cable myself, but you know, coming into the era where cars were getting more composed and more solid and more modernised to what you might expect today, so it's kind of, it's a weird balance point between feeling modern and feeling, you know, a bit old school and a bit more fun and lively. So that's pretty much it, really. That's the way I see the car so far. As I say, we'll do a proper review in future once I've got a bit more of a feel for the car and what it's about. So thanks for watching, and we will catch you next time.